Hey people, welcome back to the channel. This is a story in which Naruto is Madara's and Hashirama's grandson and is very OP and smart. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy the video. Leave a comment if you want to suggest a fanfic for me to read. Check the description for credits and support the creator of the story. So let's begin. Chapter 39 8 Turning Point hash 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 hash. No one really knows how it began, the bloodline purge that is. One only knows rumors and whispers that town folk spread around. Some say that Yagura himself suddenly woke up and decided to exterminate all living bloodline users because they posed a major threat to his leadership and regime. Some say that Yagura decided to purge every single bloodline shinobi after the Kagaya attack a few years ago. One night the Kagaya clan decided to simply attack the Mist Village, their own village to begin with. While most shinobi blamed them for being some blood-crazed clan, Yagura persuaded his shinobi to the opposite. Instead of accepting that the Kagaya clan was, for lack of a better word, mental. Yagura spawned the theory that every skirmish and war was because of bloodlines. The bloodline would affect the shinobi, turning them into nothing more than a beast looking for blood and flesh. The people in Kiri were then blinded by their pain and hatred for the Kagaya attack that they believed in their leader without question. And thus began the bloodline purge. For years Yagura and his loyalist army composed of thousands of non-bloodline users started hunting down and killing every single bloodline user they found. That's the reason as to why Kiri was cut off from the other great villages for so many years. They had some internal problems to deal with. The bloodline users were forced to band together and leave the village if they wanted to survive. Terumi Mei rose through the ranks and became the indisputable leader of the rebel side of the army. Mei commands around 4,000 shinobi who are fighting to regain back their home. But the worst part is that they are fighting people they once considered comrades, friends, lovers. After years of skirmish, battles, blood and many deaths, Mei decided to turn towards the great shinobi villages to ask for aid to their cause. Mei decided to ask Konoha, the strongest of the 5 great villages, for help. She was lucky that her prayers were answered and she was given 8 hardened and strong shinobi to fight for her cause. The dragons had just introduced themselves to the rebel leader, Terumi Mei. Everyone was geared up and ready for their travel and fight against Yagura's tyrant regime. With a small wave of hand every single shinobi blurred out of Konoha heading towards the Mist Village. The trees seemed like blurs as everyone was moving fast. Mei had already left for a few days and it wasn't good the leader to be absent for long periods of time. Mei was leading the group. She was being flanked on the left by one of her bodyguards Chojuro and to her right-hand man, Ao. Mei was extremely pleased with the help she got and couldn't wait for the war to be over. Chojuro was a bit fearful. He could feel that they were powerful shinobi and could only hope that they didn't turn on them. Ao was another story. He didn't trust them in any way whatsoever. The little digression he had the dragon leader, Silver, only seemed to increase it. Something didn't feel right with these dragons. The 7 swordsmen of the mist never needed any masks to cover their faces. All this secrecy was driving him mad. Ao brought his right hand and made half the tiger seal. Ao focused chakra into his eye, the one covered by the black eye patch. His eyes suddenly glowed white and his veins bulged out slightly, but everything was hidden by the patch. Ao gasped when he saw just what type of shinobi they were. They are monsters, every single one of them, Ao thought to himself, gasping for air, trying to keep his cool and not alert them. Their chakra levels were through the roof. The member with the lowest amount of chakra was the purple dragon, and even her had high cage level reserves. Ao nearly fainted when he noticed just the amount of chakra the leader of the dragons had. The silver dragon's chakra seemed different from the standard. His chakra was brighter than most and his reserves were on par with Biju themselves. The silver dragon had more chakra than Hoshigaki Kisame, who was renowned as the tailless Biju. Ao focused his Byakugan in trying to see through the masks and find out the identity of these powerful shinobi. You know, Silver started, you already have something that belongs to Konoha. Don't push your luck by trying to find our identity, Silver said in a monotone voice, making Ao flinch. I don't know what you are referring to, Silver-san, Ao replied as he regained his composure. May just listen to the conversation quietly. Don't play games with me, Silver warned. I know that you have a Byakugan eye behind that eye patch, Silver explained, and Ao's single eye widened. Don't look so surprised. When we introduced ourselves, I believe I explained that half of us are censors. We realized what you had hidden beneath your eye patch the moment you turned it on, Silver explained, and Ao was sweating at this point. Don't misunderstand us, Silver said in a calmer voice. We don't intend to remove your eye, but we wear masks for a purpose, Silver explained, and Ao sighed in relief. I understand and appreciate it, Ao replied, and Silver nodded, turning to May. I believe it's best for us to be informed of your current situation, Silver said, and May nodded, gathering her thoughts. Currently we have around 4,000 bloodline users in the rebel army. Yagura is the Jinchuriki of the Sanbi. He has full control over his Biju and he controls the Mist Village along with near 6,000 non-bloodline shinobi. May started. As you most likely know, Water Country is formed by multiple islands. The biggest island, located in the center of the country, is where the Mist Village is. This island is surrounded by several other where there are several outposts. Our army is spread out between two islands which we managed to capture the strongholds, May explained. We can't push forward into the main island without taking over the other three remaining strongholds first, and even then it will very difficult. Yagura has full control over his Biju and can obliterate the army if we attack in numbers. However, there isn't anyone strong enough to face Yagura on his own, not even me, May finished sadly. The rebel said had fought for years but nothing seemed to change. If your main problem is Yagura, then with us he shouldn't be a problem, Silver started noticing the incredulous look on May's face. There was a reason as to why Biju were so important to nations. They were the real army killers. The Jinchuriki, when properly trained, could wipe hundreds of shinobi in the blink on an eye, and they were hard to kill. Our group has 4 seal masters, but above else, Silver trailed off and he motioned Green to do a little show off. Green chuckled and clapped his hands together in the snake seal. A tree popped from the ground, giving Green another step to further his jump. Mokuden would release. May whispered, staring the green-colored dragon. She couldn't see it, but she knew he was laughing like crazy behind that mask. Though only Senju Hashirama could use the Mokuden, May said, shocked by the events. Well, the green dragon can do it just as well as Hashirama could back in the day, Silver replied, chuckling to himself. To think that Konoha had another Mokuden user in hiding, May said, chuckling, not to mention another Senju clan member, May said in afterthought. As you see, the Senju clan is still strong and not some dying breed, Silver explained, chuckling, as he was also member of the Senju clan, but May didn't know that. Hi, May replied, and everyone rushed even faster with renewed spirits. Few days later, Mist Country border here we are, May said as they arrived near the border. The last few days of travels were uneventful. I advise some caution as we are about to enter the Mist Country and it's still controlled by Yagura, May warned, and everyone nodded. I have a question, the purple dragon said, and May motioned her to go on. Why didn't the water daimyo intercede when this civil war started? Purple asked. I mean, he should know that a divided village would weaken the entire country. It's just by luck that the other nations were still weak from the Third Shinobi War, or they might considered conquering the mist, Purple stated. It was of no use when we tried to talk to the daimyo, May sadly said. This all began when the Kagaya clan attacked. Their members were always bloodthirsty and they didn't seem sane. One day the Kagaya attacked the Mist Village, their own home to begin with. Some members of this clan had a special Kekkei Genkei that allowed them to manipulate bones, May said, but Silver interrupted her. Shikatsumyaku, dead bone pulse, I killed the last of the Kagayas 3 years ago, Silver said, sighing, and May knew that killing was never easy, but knowing that it'd be the end of a clan, it would be worse. Only a few members of this clan were able to the dead bone pulse, but these few were extremely strong and very hard to kill. After the bloodbath, Yagura announced the bloodline purge with the daimyo's support. And the rest is history, May concluded, and outside. I wonder what kind of leader slaughters their own men. While I agree he should protect his own village at any cost, No one in their right mind would do something like this, Green said in afterthought. No one really knows why he chose to do it, May started. Yagura was always a good leader. He was kind and warm to his people and, even though he was a Jinchuriki, his village still loved him and chose him as their leader, May explained. She as well couldn't understand how someone could change like this, but she guessed that pain can change a lot of things. Pain changes people, Silver said in a monotone voice. Kushina looked towards Naruto with concern. Naruto had told her that in the beginning, Konoha hated him, but she didn't think they were physical towards him. Man, it's foggy, Green said. The fog is a natural defense of the mist country. Our shinobi are born in it and, as such, they are used to living in these conditions, May explained, and Green nodded, although he already knew that. This damn country is still foggy, even after so many years, Green thought. Sizzle, trap, Silver yelled, and everyone jumped away and landed together nearby. Boom! The place where they were exploded, blowing away the mist and creating a crater on the ground. Sweeten. Miserapa, wild water wave. Multiple voices shouted. Everyone looked to their sides to see a gigantic water wave coming to crush them all. Brown, Silver yelled, and Brown Gara nodded. Sand started flowing from inside his seals and created a protective dome around them. The water crashed against the sand and did nothing but shake it a little bit from the impact. Once Brown had let the sand down, a group of shinobi jumped in front of May and the dragons. Looks like the information was right, the apparent leader of the group stated. You really went to recruit more monsters to fight, the leader said, scowling. How did they find out? Ao asked, confused. You most likely have a spy in your army, Silver stated, getting ready for combat, his eyes glowing red behind his mask. The enemy had severely underestimated them. They had sent a mere 10-member ambush squad against 11 trained shinobi. Kaiten, Goka Mekyaku, Great Fire Annihilation. Silver said as his hands blurred towards the horse seal. He unleashed a wall of flames against the opposition, who scrambled to get away from the flames. Futen, Daitapa, Great Breakthrough. Purple said, taking a deep breath and releasing a gust of wind, powering up the flame's speed and intensity. Attack Formation E, Silver stated, and every dragon nodded, going to their respective positions. May, Ao and Chojuro just watched from the sidelines Konoha's elite fighting force at work. The opposing Kiri shinobi knew that they could never get away from the wall of flames. The range was simply far too great, and even more once powered by a wind attack. Sweeten, Sujinheki, Water Wall. The Kiri force shouted as they unleashed water from their mouths to counteract the fire. Naruto's fire attack was simply too strong to be stopped by standard water defensive techniques. The fire easily evaporated the water and bypassed their defenses. Two unlucky Kiri shinobi were used as meat shields, while the others took the opportunity to jump away. Sand binding, Brown Gara whispered as he crouched, placing his hands on the ground. Chain style, Chain Forest, Red Kushina whispered, crouching on the ground as well. Mokutan would release piercing stakes, Green shouted, and he clasped his hands together. Several trees sprouted from the ground and blurred towards the shinobi opposition. The Kiri shinobi tried to jump away but found themselves with their feet trapped. They looked to the ground to find sand and chains wrapped around their feet. The trees continued on their path and pierced most of shinobi, killing them all almost instantly. May, Ao and Chojuro had their jaws on the ground. These dragons had just decimated 10 shinobi that weren't fresh and out of the academy. Yagura wouldn't send some lowly skilled shinobi against May, Ao and Chojuro. To kill these three it would require shinobi of above average skill. That was over way too quickly. I didn't even get to use my sword, Red Kushina pouted, while Silver noticed one shinobi who managed to survive and jump away, trying to get away. Diva Path, Bansho Tenon, Silver said, pointing his right hand palm towards the fleeing shinobi. Silver's eyes were glowing silver behind his mask. The shinobi froze mid-air and started flying towards Silver, who caught him by the throat and slammed him against the ground. Green, if you please, Silver said, and Green nodded, using a few trees to pin the Kiri shinobi to the ground. The Kiri shinobi was kneeling on the ground with trees attached to the legs and both arms. Why you pant, might as well pant, kill me, I'll never talk, the Kiri shinobi panted, trying to ready himself for possible torture. He himself was already bleeding from 2 punctures wounds because of the wood and had several burn marks. He wouldn't last much longer. You don't have to, Silver said, walking towards the Kiri shinobi and placing his hand on top of his head. Human path, Silver said, and everything the Kiri shinobi ever knew, learned and experienced flowed into Silver's mind. Is he a Yamanaka? May wondered in thought as she watched Silver concentrate and enter the enemy's mind. They never knew of any Yamanaka that was this powerful, much less with such chakra capacity. You do have a spy in your army. Yagura himself said so when he briefed this team to the ambush mission. Although he's way too low in the food chain to know any relevant information, Silver said before another thought came into his mind. Let's even the playing field, Silver said, taking a few steps back. Naraka path, Silver said, pointing his arm to an empty spot on the ground. Suddenly a massive head sprouted from the ground surrounded by purple flames. It was the King of Hell and Silver had summoned him. What the hell is that? Ao yelled, taking a step back, making Chojuro grasp his sword. Silver, what are you doing? Yellow, Minato, asked, curious as to what his son was doing. Is he going to heal the enemy shinobi? Yellow thought. Suddenly a bright green light started glowing in the King of Hell's mouth and flew into the Kiri shinobi. The Kiri shinobi's body started glowing and all of his wounds started healing. The flesh started mending itself together. His bones snapped to their proper location. Once the blood had been swiped away from his skin, the Kiri shinobi stood there perfectly healed. What? How? Why did you do this? The Kiri shinobi asked, completely confused as to what happened. Nothing you will remember, Silver said, walking towards the Kiri shinobi and crouching in front of him. Look into my eyes, Silver said with his Mangekyu glowing behind his mask. The Kiri shinobi's eyes widened and he let out a gasp and he was drawn and frozen, staring into Silver's eyes. The Sharingan, that's how he placed Chojuro in a genjutsu with just a glance, Ao thought, shocked by the revelation. Of course, long blonde hair, the eye contact, entering the another's mindscape, the fan on his back. May thought to herself, chuckling. You are a loyal shinobi to Terumi May. You don't hate the bloodline users. You infiltrated Yagura's army as a spy under May's orders. Understood? Silver asked and the Kiri shinobi simply nodded. His eyes were blank and dead. Koto Amatsukami, Silver said, completing his technique and making the Kiri shinobi blink slowly as his eyes regained their usual brown color. Green released the wooden tentacles and the Kiri shinobi quickly rose. He walked calmly and kneeled before May. What are your orders, May-sama? The Kiri shinobi said, kneeling in front of her with his head lowered. What did you do? May asked, completely bewildered. This was my most powerful illusion. This illusion is so powerful that the victim doesn't even know he's being affected. It allows me to enter my opponent's mind and manipulate them by giving them false experiences, making it seem as if they were doing things of their own free will. It is regarded as a genjutsu of the highest class due to the victim being entirely unaware that they are being manipulated, Silver explained, rising, and May gulped. Though I can only apply it to weak-minded people. Shinobi with strong minds can try and fight it. To them it would end as a clash of my mind against theirs, Silver explained, and everyone let out a sigh of relief, minus Chojuro of course, who was still shaking. You live to the expectation, Senju Naruto, May said with an amused tone, making everyone freeze except Naruto, who chuckled. How did you find out? Naruto asked as he removed his silver mask. Blood-red Sharingan eyes looking towards May. That Yamanaka-styled jutsu did throw me off, but when I heard you saying, look into my eyes, and that fan on your back, coupled with your blonde hair, made it hard to be mistaken, May explained. It lasted longer than I thought it would, Naruto said, chuckling, while the rest of the dragons shook their heads. Tsunade-sensei is going to be pissed, Purple Hinata thought. So you Uchiha Madara's grandson, Ao said, stepping forward and looking straight into Naruto's Sharingan eyes. Why does everyone instantly says my gramps' name? Naruto rhetorically asked. I mean, Senju Hashirama and my father Namikaze Minato were legends on their own right, Naruto stated. Yes. But Madara outshone them, Ao simply replied. I tamed the 9 Biju and formed the village system, I killed a battalion of shinobi with a single jutsu. Hashirama and Minato both thought, drawing circles on the ground while both redheads tried to comfort their husbands. What's your name? May asked towards the kneeling shinobi. Han replied. The ambush has failed since we had help from Konoha. You are to continue your spy work. Report every week or when you find pertinent news, May ordered. As you wish, May-sama, Han answered and quickly turned to leave and report to his leader, Yagura. They were smart enough to ambush us in the border, Blue stated. Yagura is no fool. Even he knows that he can't face Konoha as of right now, and ambushing us in the Fire Country territory could be a deadly mistake, Mei replied. Let's continue. We are close to our main base, Mei said, and everyone nodded. Few days later during the last few days everything changed in the Mist Country. Everyone in the rebel side was extremely pleased to see the help that Konoha had sent them. Senju Tsunade had even sent her own grandson, Senju Naruto, to help. Not that the others dragons did nothing, but they needed a public face strong enough to boost the morale. And who anyone better than a member of both the Senju and Uchiha's clan? The rebels had come out on top of every single skirmish during the last few days. Due to Naruto, Yellow and Blue's space-time techniques, they were able to be present everywhere. Every battalion was gifted with kunai, each one keyed to either Naruto, Yellow or Blue. So when the battalion was in trouble with their battlefront, they would throw the kunai into the middle of the enemy. Several flashes later and the skirmish was won. Coupling everything with Hinata's remarkable medical capabilities, the war had shifted with the rebel getting the upper hand. Slowly but surely, the rebel side began pushing the loyalists back on all fronts. It was time to start conquering the 3 remaining strongholds so that they could start pushing towards the Mist Village itself. Mei and Ao were standing in the middle of a room with several cartographic maps planning the Resistance's next move. How is the approach looking? Naruto asked as he came into the room. Not good at all. These forts were built to last and withstand heavy siege, Mei said, sighing. I could blow it up from a distance, Naruto said, and Ao looked at him like he grew a second head. What? Naruto asked rhetorically. I'm the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi no Yoko. I can send a tailed beast ball and blow the stronghold sky high, Naruto explained, and Ao's sweat dropped. I would like to have my village in one piece when we are done with this war. Thank you very much, Mei stated, and Naruto chuckled. Each stronghold is built to be both a prison and an impenetrable castle. The walls are of hard stone and the gates are made of chakra-reinforced wood, Mei explained. Can't we just climb the walls? Naruto asked, but Mei shook her head. Due to this country's climate, those walls have small layers of water, making it very difficult to climb. To ordinary shinobi, the chakra control required is very high. Besides, they have sentries on every tower 24 hours a day. They would spot us a mile away, Mei answered, nursing her head. Storming these strongholds was always a pain in the butt. They managed to get the last 2 by overwhelming them with numbers. How about we go from underneath with a few Doton users? Naruto asked, but Mei shook her head once again. Then I'll go in alone and open the gates from the inside, Naruto said as he memorized the terrain from the map using his Sharingan. I don't need to climb walls to enter the fort, Naruto said, and Mei raised an eyebrow. My space-time techniques are on a whole new level. I can easily walk through walls and other barriers, Naruto explained, and to demonstrate he started sinking into the ground and reappeared behind Mei. Send Yellow and Purple to the other strongholds while I take the main one. They are the best at stealth and should be able to sneak in easily, Naruto explained, and Mei nodded. According to Han, Yagura is gathering the main army in the village. He seems to already be expecting for us to be able to conquer these strongholds before advancing, Mei said, and Naruto nodded. Let's gear up for the siege, Naruto said, and everyone left the room. Next day is everything ready? Naruto asked Mei. Since she was the commander of the troops, it was her job to coordinate everything. The troops are ready to storm the stronghold once the gate is open. They are about 500 meters away from it, shrouded by the mist, Mei explained, and Naruto nodded. Yellow, Purple, Naruto called out. Get ready. Coordinate your siege with Ao and Chojuro, Naruto said, and they both nodded. Naruto then turned to the rest of the dragons. Red, Green and Blue, you are with the Ao's troops into storming Yellow's stronghold. Black and Brown, you are with Chojuro's troops, Naruto ordered, and everyone nodded, walking away into their respective positions. Purple, Naruto called out, and she walked towards him. I'm delivering you the closest I can to the castle, Naruto said, and she nodded. Naruto discreetly handed her a 3-pronged kunai. You be careful, alright, and call me if you need, Naruto whispered in a gentle voice. Don't worry so much, Naruto-kun, Purple replied, taking the kunai and putting it in her pockets. Of course I worry, Naruto said and grabbed purple by the waist flashing away. Sashi's Hyuga Hinata. Interesting, May concluded to herself once she caught a glimpse of the intimate moment between the purple dragon and Naruto. Just from that small glance she could see that they were very close and that Naruto held her safety above everything. Northern Stronghold it was a very dark night. The many clouds that there were, covered the whole sky, blocking the stars and the small light coming from the moon. Night was the ally of the shinobi. The shinobi were trained assassins, sound was their enemy, the darkness their friend. The only thing visible were the torches on the stronghold and a pair of blood-red eyes glowing in the dark as they scanned the surroundings. May shivered as she looked towards Naruto. It was so dark that it was difficult to see in much detail anything coming from Naruto, but she could clearly see his eyes. Those blood-red eyes with three tomos shining and swirling in the night. Those eyes that seemed to belong to demons. Those eyes were scanning everything as if looking for prey. Those eyes belonged to hunters. Naruto, May were standing just outside of the stronghold with 1,000 shinobi behind them. They were about to siege the biggest and strongest of the 5 strongholds. This one was different from the other from the fact that it was not only bigger but housed more shinobi inside. Unlike the others where the shinobi just took shifts, this stronghold actually housed living quarters and had full-time shinobi working and guarding it. The other must have already began their attack. I'm moving into position, Naruto said and May nodded. Naruto swirled away and May turned to her troops and let them know to get ready. Naruto reappeared outside of the stronghold's walls. He leaned against the wall being shrouded by the darkness and enveloped by the shadows of the night. One of benefits of the Sharingan was night vision. Naruto could see at night just as he could see during the day. The fact that his vision was black and white with only chakra having color didn't seem to bother him much. Naruto did a quick head count and counted 10 sentries. 4s were standing inside 4 tall towers overlooking the plains in front of them, while the remaining 6 guards were patrolling the walls. Naruto pondered what to do. Should he kill the sentries and then go for the gate, or simply bypass them all and open the gates without them even knowing? Naruto opted for the first. If he took the sentries and then opened the gates, the army would be able to approach the stronghold and enter it without being detected. Yagura's men wouldn't know what happened until the rebels were already inside the castle and then it would be too late. Naruto quickly formed a mental plan. He swirled away and appeared in each tower just behind the enemies. Naruto covered the enemy's mouth with his hand. The enemy shinobi's eyes widened when he saw a black spear appear from Naruto's other hand going for his neck. He quickly killed them, stabbing them in the throat so that they couldn't scream and alert anyone. With the main sentries gone, he made his way to kill the wall guards. Using the sentry tower as a vantage point, Naruto quickly scanned the inside of the stronghold. He was lucky. The only guards seemed to be at the towers and outer walls. Inside everything was quiet as most shinobi were most likely still sleeping and some few getting ready for a shift change. Naruto threw a single 3-pronged kunai into the air and watched it sail through the air. As the kunai sailed, Naruto flashed towards the kunai and appeared in a yellow flash mid-air. The guards only saw a small glint as several shurikens came flying towards them, killing them swiftly. Naruto quickly disposed of the bodies by burying them using a small earth jutsu because otherwise using a fire jutsu could alert the enemy. Once the enemies had been dealt, Naruto stealthily entered the inside houses of the stronghold. Naruto thanked the heavens by being a sensor, thus allowing him to find enemies more easily. After all, while the Sharingan was an excellent weapon, it didn't allow him to see through walls like the Byakugan could. Naruto walked through the corridors but used the ceiling. One of the things that Jiraiya had taught him is that people very rarely look up. Naruto quietly chuckled when he saw a patrol of 2 shinobi just walk by without even detecting him. Naruto saw some lights coming from one of the rooms of the hall. Naruto used his Kamui and phased through the walls. He ended up in the medical ward of the room. Keeping inside of the wall, he noticed that were a few guards in the room, which didn't make sense to him unless the medics were prisoners and working against their will. Couple that with a heavy atmosphere and the smell of fear, and Naruto was certain of that. Naruto made a single shadow clone and positioned him behind the other guard as Naruto wouldn't be able to take one out without the other noticing it. Thump! Every medic inside the ward turned around to see both guards plummet to the ground. They were shocked to see a blonde man with Sharingan eyes standing in the middle of the room. Every medic took a step back thinking they were about to suffer the same fate as the guards. I can get you all out of here, Naruto said looking at them. There are about 10 medics all dressed in the standard white garb. We are about to storm this stronghold and in the midst of the fight you might get killed, Naruto explained and one medic took a step forward. Thank you for saving us, the woman said. She had an apparent normal face with dark hair and pitch black eyes. My name is Now said and Naruto nodded. Naruto created a shadow clone and gathered all of the medics in one small group. In a single flash of yellow everyone had left. Naruto made a few shadow clones and had the hinged into the medics and the two guards to make sure that if someone appeared, they wouldn't suspect anything. Outside with Mei Mei was startled by the sudden yellow flash that appeared right next to her. Mei turned to see the new coming and noticed it was Naruto and what appeared to be 10 medics. They were prisoners being forced as medics. I'm just a clone that was sent to deliver them. Boss is almost at the gate, Naruto said and Mei nodded as Naruto dispelled in smoke. Show them to the medical stations, Mei ordered and the medics were led towards the medical tents. No one ever noticed the small smirk on Nao's face and the glow of red with black markings appearing in her eyes. Back in the stronghold once Naruto had left the medical ward he continued through the long corridor until he found the exit that lead to the outer ring of the stronghold. Naruto looked forward and spotted the gate a bit far away. He contemplated what method he would use to open gate was it didn't seem particularly easy. The gate had heavy weights and it would require at least 3 people to open it. Mei was right when she said that the gate was reinforced with chakra as Naruto could see small traces of it running through the wood. Naruto wanted to open the gate without making noise because it would make the rebels approach easier. No other way, Naruto said as he swirled away and arrived near the gate. Naruto placed his hand on the wood and a large ray started crawling from his hands and spreading through the wood. By the design it was a standard explosive tag but magnified a few times. Naruto finished the seal and pumped chakra to charge it up. Naruto swirled away to safety and braced himself. Naruto made a singled hand seal and the gate started to glow. Boom! The gate exploded with the wooden doors being blasted away from the stronghold. Every single shinobi inside the stronghold was woken for the sound of the explosion and surely, moments later a loud siren started echoing through the night. That was enough sign for Mei to order her troops to move forward. Charge, Mei yelled as she and all of her troops suddenly jumped out of the mist and started running full speed towards the castle. Not even 5 seconds later and the stronghold was being swarmed by 1,000 fully armed shinobi. Loud explosion and the sound of metal clashing was heard through all of the stronghold. Mei, Naruto said as he jumped from the walls and rendezvoused with Mei. Take a few hundred shinobi. Circle the castle and infiltrate from the back gate, Naruto said and Mei got confused. There is no back gate, Mei stated. I made one, Naruto seriously said and Mei's eye twitched. It's a small hole. You can fix it later, Naruto explained and Mei sighed. Platoon A to D come with me, Mei ordered and circled the castle and stormed it from behind, sandwiching the enemy behind 2 fronts. Well, Naruto heard and turned to meet Onkiri shinobi who seemed to be unaffected by the pandemonium running through the base. We meet at last, Senju Naruto, the shinobi said. And you are? Naruto asked looking intently at the man. He wore the standard kiri with the flak jacket, and pinstriped leg and arm guards. Where are my manners? My name is Toshio and one of newer members of the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist, Toshio said as he took out a sword from behind his back. It was one big cleaver to make it simple. I see, Naruto said channeling chakra to his wrist seals and his old Chikudo popped into existence. I always thought that the Senju clan was overrated. After all the strongest clan was decimated during the First and Second Shinobi War while the weakest ones lasted, Toshio taunted but the taunt was met with a emotionless and serious face. Show me what you are worth Senju Naruto, Konoha no Raijin, son of the Kuroi Senko and grandson of Uchiha Madara, Toshio yelled running towards Naruto with his cleaver held up high. Naruto quickly analyzed the enemy with his Sharingan and could see that he was nothing than a mere Junin with standard chakra reserves. I guess the swordsman title went over his head, Naruto thought to himself and thanked the heavens for him having Hinata. Otherwise he would go all god on other people. Toshio brought down his giant cleaver trying to split Naruto on half but only caught Naruto's afterimage. Toshio only knew he missed when his sword hit the ground. Toshio turned around and used the flat side of his sword to block a horizontal slash from Naruto. Chidori Nagashi, Naruto said, and his sword and hands sparkled with electricity. By both swords being made with metal, Naruto's electric attack got transferred toward Toshio and made him spasm. He jumped up and back with his hands smoking. Toshio placed the sword on his back and started going through hand seals. One particular jutsu that Naruto knew all too well. Kurigakur no Jutsu, hidden mist jutsu. Toshio said, and the grounds where they were fighting became all covered in mist. This is the end, brat, Toshio said as he disappeared inside the mist. Naruto just shook his head and stayed relaxed in the same place. Why bother moving at all when you can't see half an inch ahead of him? Naruto quickly knew that Toshio was an amateur at the art of silent killing. Naruto could hear him breathing for the love of God. Naruto was getting bored by the fight and decided to end it when Toshio made his move. Die! Toshio yelled as he appeared behind Naruto with his cleaver, getting ready to cut Naruto in half. And cut he did, or so he thought as he watched the blade pass through Naruto and exit at the other end. What are you? Toshio yelled. Naruto turned around and locked eyes with him. Toshio stared at his Mangekyo blazing, and he never knew that it was the last thing he would ever see. Your end, though I won't kill you. You seem pretty high up in the food chain, so you might know some valuable information, Naruto said as his Mangekyo glowed. Toshio was completely absorbed into Naruto's eyes in matter of seconds. Let's get this over with, Naruto said and blurred towards the corridors and halls, killing everyone that got in his way. Kaiten, Goka Mekyaku, Great Fire Annihilation. Raiden, Raryuden, Lightning Dragon. Suiten, Suiryuden no Jutsu, Water Dragon. Naruto unleashed jutsu after jutsu, decimating everything in front of him. No one could stop his onslaught of jutsu. From gigantic walls of flames to water and lightning dragons. The siege on the stronghold was brief and swift. In a mere hour the stronghold had been conquered. With ow, red, green, blue and yellow the attack on the other stronghold had also been swift and efficient. Yellow, Minato, had successfully infiltrated the stronghold and proceeded to slam a big Rasengan against the wooden gates. Once the gates were down, Yellow's forces swarmed the castle and quickly captured it with the use of the Hirishin and some high-level water jutsus. With Chojuro, black, brown and purple while purple Hinata didn't any fancy space-time techniques, she didn't require them to be an extremely effective shinobi. Just with her Byakugan and her extremely accurate aim, coupling that with deadly poisons, she was a force to be reckoned with. Though Purple was supposed to infiltrate the castle, she took a different approach. Purple simply approached the gates from the outside, without no one even noticing her, and simply punched the gates. The wooden gates that were supposed to withstand heavy siege were simply blown from their hinges and crashed into the back of the stronghold. That's one scary woman, Chojuro shakily said while Black Mito laughed. Mito did taught Tsunade the basics of super strength, though Tsunade managed to refine it to a whole new level. With Brown's sand and Black's shields, the life losses were slim to none. Purple lead the attack and they decimated the enemy in a matter of hours. Next day May. Ow. Chojuro and most of the dragons were gathered at the main stronghold, the one Naruto and May conquered. The castle had a cheerful ambient. This was the most they ever achieved in almost 2 years of fighting. We did one hell of a progress today, May said, and her troops cheered. Just a few more days and everything would be over. We have Naruto and his dragons to thank for, May said. You don't ha bo A massive explosion echoed through the grounds, making everything shake from the power. Naruto and the dragons quickly made their way towards the surveillance towers and they managed to see the location of the explosion, not too far away. That's the medical stations, May stated while Naruto realized that Hinata was there doing what she could to heal the injured. Hinata, Naruto yelled and started running since he couldn't sense her marker anymore. The rest of the dragons and May run towards the location of the explosion as well. Medical camps. Few minutes earlier Purple was working at the main tent healing the injured. The loss of life during the siege was minimal, but there was always injured shinobi. Hinata was a very good healer and extremely skilled in the mystical palm. Apparently the better your chakra control was, the more efficient was the technique. The bones are in their proper place, give it a few days and you will back to new, Purple said and the shinobi thanked her. Hinata quickly finished the remaining patients and went for check-up routine on all of them before she decided to leave. Takumi-san, Purple said as she entered the room of the head doctor. I'm Leah, Purple was saying but stopped when she saw Takumi's body on the ground in a pool on his own blood. Purple quickly rushed him only to find out he was assassinated if his slit throat was anything to go by. Hinata activated her Byakugan just in time to see a hail of kunai and shurikens being thrown at her. Kaden, Purple said and started spinning in a blue dome of chakra and blocking every single projectile that was thrown at her. Would you look at that? Now rhetorically asked as she jumped down from her hiding spot, landing in front of Purple smirking. I get to kill a Hyuga, now said grinning. Now. Wire doi, Hinata was about to ask what was going on when she looked to Nao's eyes. They were blood red with 3 black tomos. Sharingan. How is that possible? Purple whispered with her mind running a mile per second. You can't be an Uchiha, it is not possible. The only remaining Uchihas are Naruto, Sasuke and the Tobi fellow, Purple explained not mentioning Minato's name. I don't know anything about that, now said chuckling as her Sharingan started spinning gaining a completely new appearance. What was once the standard Sharingan now looked like a vortex and giving the fact that the Sharingan was spinning, it gave the effect of drawing Purple to her eyes. A Mangekyo, Purple said as she broke the trance from looking at her eyes. Yes dear. A eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. You stand no chance, now said as she smirked. Now blurred through hand seals and took a deep breath. Kaden. Gukakyu no Jutsu, great fireball technique. Now said and released a fireball towards Purple. Purple jumped away to avoid and the whole medical tent went up in flames, making it nothing more than a battlefield. Sweeten. Sujinheki, water wall. Purple said mid-air and released an small water wall to block the flames that decimated the tent. Sweeten. Suiryuden no Jutsu, water dragon. Purple said as she used the water she expelled from her mouth and formed a water dragon. The dragon rocketed towards Nao but it was countered by a fire dragon that nullified her attack. You not bad for a medic, Nao taunted as the steam began to spread, lessening its thickness. Purple dashed towards Nao who smirked and got ready to face the Hyuga in battle. While Nao knew that you should never face a Hyuga in taijutsu she was an Uchiha. Purple and Nao met halfway and began exchanging multiple punches and kicks. They were just trying to get a feel for their opponent. Let's up this shall we, Nao said as her eyes began to glow. Hinata had no choice but to disable her Byakugan. If Hinata had her Byakugan active, there was no way she could avert from looking at the Sharingan. Amaterasu, Nao said and Hinata erupted in black flames. Nao smirked but quickly dropped it when Hinata burst at water. Sutankyaku, heavenly foot of pain, Purple said as came down from the sky with her leg raised, ready to strike. Nao's eyes widened when she the chakra built up in her leg and had no choice. Nao's eyes glowed once again, she jumped up and back, coiling herself as a purple ethereal ribcage appeared around her. Hinata's heel connected and the ground erupted from the attack. Nao was blasted backwards and crashed into the ground making her Susanoo crack. You really are something else, if I didn't have this you would have won, Nao said as her Susanoo started reforming and completely erased the cracks. Susanoo, Purple stated as the dust cleared. How do you know this power? Nao curiously asked. I know all about the Susanoo and his weakness, Purple stated while Nao took it as an offense to her eyes. The Susanoo has no weakness, it's our ultimate defense, Nao said as her chakra flared. I beg to differ, Purple said crouching on the ground and going through hand seals. Haijutsu, Mugen no aim, secret technique, endless rain. Purple said crouching on the ground. Soon enough clouds started gathering and rain started to fall. The Susanoo's weakness is himself. The Susanoo is created of pure chakra and as such can be absorbed, Purple explained and Nao's eyes widened when her Susanoo began to show signs of starting to melt. However Nao would have nothing of that and funneled more chakra into her eyes, making the Susanoo regain his balance. You rain is useless, Nao said laughing while Hinata shook her head inwardly. The Susanoo already eats lot of chakra, by using my rain I'm making you double the amount required to stabilize it. The bigger the Susanoo the more chakra it eats. And your chakra reserves are the standard cage level. You won't last much longer, Purple thought to herself analyzing the battlefield. Purple suddenly dashed towards Nao who smirked and braced herself. Now Susanoo swung her purple ethereal saber. Purple simply crouched on the ground, making the blade fly by harmlessly above her head. Purple quickly rose from the ground and in a burst of speed she arrived near Now. Purple cocked her fist back and smashed it against the shield, cracking it. Now was pissed as she was pushed back by a medic of all people. Now pushed more chakra into the Susanoo and it began expanding, covering the ribs and starting to form some humanoid form. Now rose from the ground and her Susanoo started swinging the saber wildly, trying to hit the elusive purple dragon. Sweeten, Purple started going through hand seals but was stopped by a burst of black flames right on top of her mask. Purple quickly stopped channeling chakra into her mask and it fell to the ground, revealing the face of one Hyuga Hinata. So I was fighting Hyuga Hinata. Now it all makes sense, Now stated, shaking her head. No other Hyuga could give me the headache you are giving, Now said, getting ready to strike once again. While she's using the Susanoo, she's restrained to only using that saber, Hinata thought, crouching and absorbing the chakra she stole from Nao's Susanoo. Dokugiri, poison mist. Hinata said and took a deep breath and released a cloud of purple-looking smoke into the area. Shit, Nao said, cursing her luck and taking a deep breath. Nao began swinging the sword wildly, trying to rid of the damn poison mist. Sweeten, Tepudama, water bullet. Shuriken Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shuriken Shadow Clone. Hinata shouted from multiple directions. Hundreds of water bullets and shurikens rained down of Nao's Susanoo, who buckled from the pressure. Nao was pushing more and more chakra into her shield, trying to sustain it to block all the incoming projectiles. Hinata appeared right in front of Nao and smashed her fist into her Susanoo, making visible cracks appear on the shell. Nao was thrown backwards and crashed into the ground. Nao coughed and held her head in pain just as she saw Hinata coming down from the sky once again. Sutankyaku, heavenly foot of pain, Hinata said and smashed her heel into Nao's Susanoo, cracking everything and making a huge crater appear. Hinata jumped back and crouched on the ground, taking a deep breaths. You bitch, Nao said, appearing from the dust cloud, nursing her bleeding arm, also taking deep breaths. Nao locked eyes with Hinata and said, petrifying gaze, 1. Hinata was drawn into Nao's eyes as they began to spin, forming a vortex and petrifying Hinata in place. Hinata was frozen in place, but it wasn't a genjutsu. She didn't know what it was, but once she looked into her Mangekyo, Hinata was suddenly frozen in place. Now die, Nao sweetly said, dashing towards Hinata with a kunai raised. Nao smiled as she buried the kunai in her chest, killing her. Hinata exploded in smoke and another Hinata rose from the water. Nao turned just in time to see a chakra-pumped fist smashing into her face. Nao was thrown into the ground and Hinata knew she was going to stay down for good this time. Beaten by Pant, some medic. Pathetic, Nao said, spitting out blood. If I'm going down, I'm taking you with me, Nao said and started laughing as she was making half a tiger sign. Hinata's eyes widened when she saw explosive tags spread around all the camp. Apparently Nao's primary objective was the destruction of the medical camp. Die, Nao yelled and Hinata crouched on the ground and started spinning. Sweeten, Kaden, Hinata said. Hinata was enveloped in a blue dome of charka with water spinning around her as well. Hinata tried to make her Kaden as flatter as possible so that she could better dissipate the energy of the explosion. Boom, the whole area exploded and became covered in flames. Hinata held on during the explosion, keeping her rotation up as far as she could. Hinata was forced to drop the rotation mid-spin and was blasted away, although not taking the full damage from the explosion. The flames lit up the sky due to the magnitude of the explosion. Once the flames had died down and the dust started to clear, everything was gone. The medical tents, the patients and doctors inside. Everything was vaporized. Hinata rose from the ground, she was a complete mess. She had light burns around her arms and hands, her clothes were singed and half of chest plate armor was destroyed. Hinata sat on the ground taking deep breaths and trying to fight off unconsciousness when she saw a blonde blur. She smiled, knowing very well who that blur was. It was her knight in shining armor. Well, not shining per se, but it was close enough. Naruto-kun, Hinata said. Closing her eyes and embracing unconsciousness. Chapter 40 God of War hash 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 hash. Previously Hinata sat on the ground taking deep breaths and trying to fight off unconsciousness when she a blonde blur. She smiled knowing very well who that blur was. It was her knight in shining armor. Well, not shining per se, but it was close enough. Naruto-kun, Hinata said, closing her eyes and embracing unconsciousness. Now Naruto almost stumbled as he got to the medical stations. Even to his trained blue eyes the surroundings were nothing but a blur as he was racing towards the site of the explosion. The others tried their best to catch to him, but only the dragons and Mei could keep up with him, and even then they were strained to do so. Naruto arrived at the medical stations and saw nothing but fire. The medical tents were decimated and only a large crater and fire could be seen. Naruto's heart was racing as he scanned his surroundings trying to find Hinata. Naruto knew she was here and most likely got caught in the blast. Hinata, Naruto yelled but got no reply. He looked around trying to find any sign of life. Kit, Kurama called out from inside his mind. I can sense her. A few meters to the east. She's not alone, Kurama said, and Naruto disappeared again. Naruto arrived at the location Kurama had said and found Hinata leaning against a rock. She was unconscious, that Naruto could see from far away. In a flash Naruto was by her side and just in time to block an array of shurikens that were coming for her. Naruto blocked all of the shuriken and looked towards they came from, only to notice a shinobi shunshin away. It was only a glimpse, but Naruto could see that she was female and she was that medic, now, he had saved from when he infiltrated the strongholds. Naruto took Hinata in his arms and gently laid her on the ground. Naruto bent down, placing his head on her chest to sigh in relief when he heard a strong heartbeat. His eyes were flashing red with black slits as he unintentionally pulled Kurama's power. He was pissed alright. In a flash of hand seals and a poof of smoke, Kagura was on the human realm. You summoned Naruto? Kagura asked but didn't wait for a reply when he saw the devastation around her and Naruto's mate on the ground. Kagura's tails immediately started glowing and scanning Hinata's body. She's lucky to have survived this blast, Kagura said, but Naruto didn't reply. He just looked at Hinata. She has a few broken ribs, internal bleeding and a concussion, most likely from the explosion and getting blasted towards this rock, Kagura explained, and Naruto nodded, his eyes flashing silver. Naraka path, Naruto said, and the King of Hell appeared just a few inches away from him. The King of Hell's mouth glowed green as he sent a small beam of energy into Hinata's body. It only took a few seconds, Hinata's breathing stabilized and her scorched skin disappeared to her normal flawless skin. Naruto smiled as he noticed that she looked better and peaceful in her sleep. Then he remembered what happened here. His anger was rising as he quickly knew that happened here. Yagura had sent some of his shinobi to take out the medical camps. It was a low move, but this was war, where any opportunity is to be taken. Yagura had destroyed the medical tents. Tents filled with sick and weak people, filled with doctors and nurses who had nothing to do with this war and only wanted to help save the few they could. People who had dedicated their lives into helping other people didn't deserve such fate. The place where the love of his life was working. He hurt his mate and he was going to pay for everything he had done. Naruto was thinking on these lines as he was finishing restoring Hinata's body when the rest of the dragons, Mei, Chojuro and Ao, arrived. Mei looked sadly at the devastation and shook her head at the lengths Yagura would go to win this war. He would target a hospital filled with sick people only to get an edge on this pathetic and pointless war. Those who prey on the weak and helpless have no place in this world, Naruto said, and Mei took a step back when she heard the tone and felt the malice behind his voice. She looked at him and noticed the purple dragon unconscious on the ground. The mask was gone and was replaced with the beautiful face of Hyuga Hinata. Even Mei had to admit she was a goddess in human form. Mei smiled at the fondness and love that Naruto had of her but quickly forgot that when she felt his anger. That can't be good, Red Kushina thought, looking at her son with worry. That deep and cold voice made her shiver as if a ghost had just walked by. Those ants dared to try and kill my Hinata, Naruto said darkly, and all of the dragons were looking at him with weary faces. Naruto was always a easy-going guy, friendly and highly protective of everyone he cared about. Naruto tended to avoid confrontations when he could. Although there was one golden rule: don't hurt anyone he cares for, much less Hinata. The dragons knew they had no chance of defeating Naruto, much less when he was pissed and fighting for real. "I'll slaughter them," Naruto roared in absolute rage, with his chakra levels rapidly escalating. Mei looked alarmed and scared as she never saw Naruto in such state. She never saw him pissed and angry, and, judging by the levels of his chakra output, he was beyond pissed. She was sweating and Naruto wasn't even mad at her. "Naruto, calm down," Minato said, trying to calm his son down. Minato flinched and took a step back when Naruto turned and faced him, locking eyes with him. His Mangekyo Sharingan was glowing and the aura he was releasing was so powerful and strong that the ground was cracking from the pressure. "They dared to hurt my mate," Naruto said, chuckling to himself. I was gulping and taking a few steps away from that monster. Chojuro was shaking like a wild leaf. "I will show them my power. The power of Senju Naruto. I'm going to show them what happens when you anger a god," Naruto said in dark voice, and in a flash of yellow he was gone. It took them all a few minutes to recover from what happened. "What the hell happened to him?" Mei asked, gulping as her breathing returned to normal. She was drop dead scared of Naruto right about now. She never knew he could be so cold and intimidating. "Everyone has darkness, and that is what happens when you hurt Hinata," Red Kushina said as she bended over and picked up Hinata in her arms. Kushina was no medic, but even she could see that Hinata was back to perfect health. "He got so angry. I've never seen something like that," Mei said, shivering. "Naruto is highly protective of his girlfriend," Yellow stated. "Don't you think that's a bit excessive? He managed to heal her back to full health," Mei explained, confused. Naruto's reaction was excessive. "I understand why you would say something like that, and before I explain, let me ask you something," Red Kushina began. "What do you know of Senju Naruto? What do you think he is?" Red asked to Mei, who got into a thinking position. "Senju Naruto, S-rank shinobi of Konoha, grandson of the Godime Hokage, Senju Tsunade, and the head of the Senju clan," Mei explained, and Kushina nodded, seeing that was the information contained in the bingo book. "How do you think his life was growing up in the Leaf was?" Red asked, and Mei was startled by such question but answered nonetheless. "Like any other heir to a clan, I suppose. He was most likely treated like a king or royalty, even more for him being the heir of the Senju clan, one of the founding clans of Konoha and said to be the strongest of all," Mei explained, and Kushina gave a hollowed chuckle. "What if I told you that until 3 years ago Naruto was known as the demon brat?" Kushina stated, and Mei's eyes widened since she understood that reference. Naruto's parents died a few minutes just after he was born. The Yondaime gave his life to seal the Kyuubi in him, making him a Jinchuriki. His life growing up was a nightmare and a hell. An orphan kid who was an outcast by the villagers, he was beaten and chased by them for being a demon, Kushina stated in a sad voice. He was a lonely boy without any friends, mistreated by the whole village, expelled from the orphanage when he was only 4 years old. Forced to live in the wild for months until the Sandaime found him and gave him a house. But the house did nothing to appease his lonely heart, Kushina said, almost sobbing, until Yellow placed an hand over her shoulder to give her some comfort. "How is he even sane?" Mei asked in a low voice. She never knew that there was such past behind the cheerful attitude of Naruto. "That is where Hyuga Hinata comes in," Kushina started in a livelier voice. "She comes from the Hyuga clan, where her father deemed her too weak to be the heiress of such honored clan. She was disowned and expelled from the clan by her own father when she had only 8 years. She, like Naruto, was thrown away like garbage and forced to live on the streets," Kushina said. "Luckily for both of them, they found each other," Red said, smiling. "They lived on the same roof ever since then. They lived and trained to prove to others and each other that they aren't weak or demons. Eventually love grew between them. Hinata was and is the anchor for Naruto. I fear to what lengths Naruto would go if something ever happened to her," Kushina said as Mei took him in a new light. "So do you understand why Naruto's reaction was this extreme? From the moment he was born he had nothing. He finally gained something and he would die to protect it," Kushina explained, and Mei nodded knowingly. "I've never experienced anything like that, so I can only imagine," Mei stated until she remembered what Naruto had said. "We have to stop him. He's going after Yagura, isn't he?" Mei asked, and every dragon nodded. "He's going to kill himself." According to Han, Yagura mobilized the remaining of his army the village. There still are around 2,000 shinobi and Yagura himself, Mei said in a panic getting ready to leave. In the last few days she grew friendly with Naruto. No, Blue said in his monotone voice, placing a hand on her shoulder. It's better we stay out of the way unless we want to get caught in the crossfire, Blue said, but Mei wouldn't budge. Are you insane? Mei said. No one can face 2,000 shinobi alone and win, much less an army with their leader having full control over his biju, Mei retorted. You no idea the extension of his power, Blue said, shocking Mei by his blind faith on his leader. By tomorrow, Kurigakure will be ours, Blue said and left Mei stunned in place. So we are just going to stand here and watch? Mei asked in a low voice. Unless you want to sacrifice your men then. Yes, Blue said. We are moving close to the village once Naruto begins his attack, Blue explained in yellow nodded, flashing everyone to nearby the gates of Kurigakure. My God, Mei stuttered looking at the village. Mizukage's tower, underground facility you fool, a voice echoed through the whole room. The room itself was very large and had many supporting pillars to keep it from collapsing. From the stone color anyone could clearly tell that this room was deep underground. At the end of the room were two large metal doors that would most likely lead to another area. Back to the two people that were arguing. The person that yelled was standing and pacing around the room pissed by his subordinate. He was wearing a high-collared black cloak with red clouds emblazoned in it. He had black spiky hair and was wearing an orange mask with a swirling pattern. He was Tobi or Uchiha Fugaku for those few that knew him. The other person was kneeling in front of him, bowing her head in shame. She had long dark black hair that reached her waist with a small bang coming down her forehead and touching her nose. She was wearing black long-sleeved gloves that reached her elbows. She had a light black, high-collared jacket with mesh shirt underneath and black shorts. She was now Uchiha and was kneeling after a failed mission. Check profile for now's image. It was surprisingly hard to find a decent female Uchiha, you were told not to reveal yourself and yet you did, Tobi yelled, making now cringe from the sound. And for what? Tobi rhetorically asked, so you could show the world that there is one more Uchiha alive and nearly getting killed in the process, Tobi roared. Flashback die, now yelled and Hinata crouched on the ground and started spinning. All of the explosive tags started sizzling getting ready to detonate. Now saw Hinata crouching, knowing very well that she was trying to pull a Kaden to survive the blast. Now closed her eyes and relaxed. The moment she heard one of the tags go off she focused and channeled chakra into her left eye. She opened her left eyes and it proudly displayed her Sharingan glowing in all its power. So the outcome comes to this, Izanagi, now whispered as her Sharingan glowed and the medical tents exploded in flames. Now shimmered out of existence only to reappear a few yards away crouching on the ground, taking deep breaths. She had sacrificed her left eye to survive the blast and, while her body was new once again, her chakra reserves were almost depleted. There she is, now said chuckling to herself as she found Hinata fighting off unconsciousness near a rock. Now picked up the remaining shurikens she had and hurled them towards the defenseless Hinata. Now smiled as the kune made their way towards Hinata only to be blocked by Naruto. Damn it, now said and focused her chakra shunshining away. Now had barely came out on top of that fight and had to sacrifice a eye to survive. She could never take on Naruto at this point. End flashback, my deepest apologies Tobi, now said but a glare from Tobi set her straight. I mean, Fugaku-sama, now quickly corrected herself not to disrespect her leader. It was a simple demolition mission which requires stealth and finesse to achieve the goal, clearly I chose the wrong person to do it. I would have thought that as the second in command for the Uchiha clan you would have more caution, Fugaku stated looking at her, all the while now kept her head down. She wanted to say no when Fugaku gave her this mission. Now didn't feel right killing injured people. Now was a warrior of the Uchiha clan and she felt that every life she took it had to be in combat with her winning but. She was an Uchiha and her loyalty was to her leader. And now look at you. You blew the mission so you could fight a Hyuga, Fugaku said shaking his head, and you lost. The only reason you would have won was because she got injured in the explosion and you sacrificed an eye, Fugaku said sighing. How was I supposed to know that I was fighting Hyuga Hinata and once the fight started I couldn't leave her alive, now replied looking at Fugaku. Her right eye was the normal black but her left one was completely different. It was now a hollowed white, meaning it was a dead, blind eye. A sacrifice for using the Uchiha's Kinjutsu and changing reality. And look how good that went, Fugaku sarcastically replied. You lost an eye and yet. The Hyuga still lives, Fugaku countered and now bit her lip. With your sister dead, you possess the only eternal in the whole clan as only a few others have the Mangekyo, Fugaku said and now looked down sadly. The funny thing about an Uchiha is that they can't live without their eyes. If you remove them, the Uchiha dies shortly. And that happened to Nao's sister as Nao's eyes didn't accept her sister. When they found out it was too late. You know that you can have Nagato heal me with his Rinnegan. Now tried to counter but Fugaku was adamant in making sure she understood her mistake. Nagato is dying. The Rinnegan is too powerful for his body. Every time he uses it, his body grows weaker and weaker. He won't last much longer, Fugaku sadly said. The Rinnegan isn't some ordinary dujutsu. Even with the Uzumaki vitality, those eyes are too powerful for him to wield, Fugaku stated releasing a deep breath. There isn't many people who could even think of wielding such dujutsu without any drawbacks. Only someone who has both Uchiha and Senju blood can wield it to their full power, Fugaku explained. If you placed those eyes on any Uchiha, they would die the moment they used them. Due to their bodies, the Senju and Uzumaki can wield them, but that is only partially and temporarily, until their body succumbs. And there aren't that many Senjus left around. Fugaku said and now sighed. You could use them without any drawbacks as Madara-sama gave you Senju DNA to strengthen your body, now stated getting a tick mark from Fugaku. Nagato still has plenty of uses. I'll have him restore your eyesight. The Akatsuki is beginning to make their move and soon the Uchiha clan will rule the world, Fugaku stated and now got up to leave when a new figure entered the room. The figure wore dark blue pants with a blue cloth hanging from halfway up his stomach to his knees. He also wore black arm guards that covered his forearms and stretched up to reach his upper biceps. He also wore a purple rope belt around his waist, tied in a bow, in which he carries his sword. He was Uchiha Sasuke. So Hinata kicked your ass, Sasuke mockingly said with his Sharingan glowing. HN now replied walking past him but not without giving her reply. If I remember correctly you lost to the dead last of the academy several times, now retorted smirking while Sasuke scowled. He was about to comment when a massive earthquake was felt. Fugaku, Sasuke and now stumbled as they tried to keep their ground. A few specks of dust fell from the ceiling due to the size of the earthquake. This chakra, now said with her eyes widening, who could possess such presence? Now fearfully asked. Fugaku was also curious about this massive chakra signature that he suddenly felt within the village. Fugaku focused as he felt his chakra and cursed his luck. That would be the pissed off Senju whose girlfriend you tried to kill a few minutes ago, Fugaku stated. So the Dobi shows himself, Sasuke said and was about to leave and go fight him when Fugaku grabbed him by the arm. He's on a different level than you, patience Sasuke, Fugaku said and Sasuke unwillingly agreed leaving the room. Looks like my pet's hour has come to an end. I can't reveal the Uchihas just yet, Fugaku thought to himself, making his way to the roof to observe just how much Naruto had grown. He was such a obedient pet, such shame, Fugaku sadly thought. Gather the clan, Fugaku said towards Nao who nodded. We are moving out of Kurigakure, Fugaku said as he left the room. Few minutes earlier, Kurigakure's main gates it was a calm and silent night in the village of Kurigakure. At least that is what it appeared to be because if you looked deeper, you could feel a tense atmosphere with several shinobi running around. After all, they were at war and Yagura had mobilized the remaining army to defend the village against the next assault which would be in the next few days. It was a full moon and a cloudless night. The moon was shining high in the sky illuminating the whole village. The shinobi were running around like headless chickens. They had so much to do in so little time. Guards were posted at the gates and walls to check for any sign of an attack. Armories and blacksmiths were working non-stop to produce weapons and armor for the shinobi to use. Man, I hope those monsters attack soon so that Yagura-sama can wipe them out and get this over with, one of the guards stated to his companion who seemed bored as well. Apparently no one liked doing guard duty, after all you just sit there looking out for threats and stamp papers all day. Couldn't agree more, the other guard replied yawning. The guard stretched and opened his eyes, getting up, when he saw a small flare on the distance. What is that? The guard asked, looking at the distance. There was a small flare on the distance, it looked like a small campfire or something similar. What? The other guard asked as his companion's eyes widened. That, the guard yelled, as he jumped off, when the small beacon on the distance was quickly approaching. The other guard didn't even have time to blink as the small beacon became a gigantic wall of white-hot flames. The walls and gates were engulfed by the flames with such intensity that even rock started melting. Raise the alar, the surviving guard yelled, but that was cut off by a sword through his chest. The last thing the guard saw was a pair of deep blood-red eyes. I'll show them the despair the bloodlines users felt, Naruto said as he blurred towards the village with his sword at hand. Naruto was running through the village when the shinobi started gathering up in front of him. In just a few seconds the whole army was standing in front of him with Naruto looking at them impassively, his yellow hair flowing in the wind. Truly amazing, Yagura said as he watched the battle from the top of the Mizukage's tower. 2,000 shinobi stand in front of you and you don't even blink, Yagura said astonished. When I'm done with them, Naruto said pointing his sword towards the army. I'm coming for your head Yagura, Naruto stated and the army started laughing. Do you really think you can get past us? One of the shinobi said while other laughed. I'm not getting past you. When I'm done slaughtering every one of you, I'll be going for Yagura, Naruto stated and the shinobi quickly shut up. Let me show you the power of a god, Naruto stated and began unleashing his silver chakra that seemed to complement the moon in the sky. His hair began to flap wildly and the ground began to crack as his aura skyrocketed. The shinobi army decided that enough was enough and rushed Naruto. Suddenly the whole village felt his chakra and anger and buckled to his power. A few shinobi stumbled as they ran once they felt his true power. They were gasping for air and dropping to their knees as Naruto unleashed his chakra. Kaiten, Goka Mekyaku, Great Fire Annihilation. Naruto said forming the horse hand seal and pumping his lungs with chakra. A colossal wall of flames erupted from his mouth and rocketed towards the shinobi army, scorching the ground and destroying everything in its path. The shinobi army's eyes widened at the sheer magnitude of the jutsu. Water users quickly rushed to the front lines to try and mount some kind of defense. Sweden, Sujinheki, water wall. Dozens of shinobi shouted releasing water from their mouths to stop the onslaught of the flames. The water collided with a fire and it was enough to stop it in its tracks. Once the clash was over, a big steam cloud washed over the battlefield from the jutsu clash. Naruto smiled as his sword sparkled with electricity and he rushed head-on against an army of 2,000. There was no other word for it unless slaughter. These weak shinobi posed no threat against Naruto. Naruto ducked under one punch and kicked another shinobi, blasting him away from the power of the strike. Left and right, shinobi were getting tossed aside like rag dolls, there was no stopping him. They could barely track Naruto and once they got close to him it would be over. The fact that it was night coupled with the steam cloud made it worse for the shinobi who were dropping like flies. Futen, Daitapa, Great Breakthrough, a shinobi shouted and sent a gust of wind that sent Naruto flying back but he quickly flipped mid-air and landed gracefully on the ground. Naruto's eyes glowed as he made a single tiger hand seal. Enten, Goka Mekyaku, Inferno Style, Great Fire Annihilation. Naruto said and instead of the usual white-hot flames, pitch-black ones came from his mouth. But, unlike the other ones, there was no stopping this attack. Blocking this attack wasn't an option as the army soon discovered when the black wave clashed with a water shield and easily evaporated it. Black flames spread through the battlefield decimating a chunk of the army as the other scrambled. The army watched in fear as the black flames descended upon them. They ran out of the way but a small contact and it was all over. They screamed and rolled on the ground, trying to put out the black flames. Once the unlucky ones have been dealt with, the army retook their positions all the while watching the black flames burning on the side. Now they understood who they angered and who they were facing. The heated air went to the sky and started forming clouds and rain started to fall. Soon enough thunders could be heard, illuminating the whole sky with their power. Due to the clouds and being night, darkness covered the whole village. The only light they had was that of a few fires created from the destruction and lightning bolts in the sky. 300 down, Naruto started as his eyes glowed once again. 1700 to go, Naruto said as he was surrounded by a silver aura. The aura started expanding and forming a shield around Naruto. It was the beginning stage of the Susanoo. A single rib-caged form stood around Naruto as it began to grow and grow. Soon the ribcage started growing out and getting covered by a small layer. What monster is he? A fearful shinobi asked as he looked towards the monster figure that surrounded Naruto. He was some kind of silver ethereal humanoid with black teeth. The humanoid's hands glowed and a weapon appeared in each of his hands. The Susanoo's hands glowed and chakra expanded outwards forming some kind of sword. At the end of the sword it was a long curved blade. Those were scythes, the weapon that Naruto's Susanoo decided to show. Some say that the Susanoo's weapons are the ones the user is truly meant to wield during his lifetime, but Naruto had a suspicion it had something to do with the deal he made with the Shinigami. After all, if Naruto wanted, any enemy slain by those swords would be sealed in the death god's stomach for all eternity. Flashback. Training trip. Snake right pointing arrow, boar right pointing arrow, ram right pointing arrow, rabbit right pointing arrow, dog right pointing arrow, rat right pointing arrow, bird right pointing arrow, horse right pointing arrow, snake right pointing arrow. Clap hands. Shiki Fujin, Reaper death seal. Naruto said as the air suddenly became colder. Jiraiya, Hinata and Gaara shivered when they felt the Shinigami's presence shimmer behind Naruto. Behind Naruto a white spectral image formed almost instantly. The figure had purple-colored skin with large white robes. He had 2 red horns and 2 fangs with black teeth. He had long white spiky hair and on his mouth a large knife. On his hands he had a chain of red beads. What did you summon me for, mortal? The death god asked annoyed. His voice was like ice. It seemed that yet again, another human had dared to summon him to his bidding. I have a proposition for you, Shinigami-sama, Naruto said, but the Shinigami didn't look pleased. I don't deal with mortals. So if this is what you summoned me for, I'll take your soul, the Shinigami said and extended his arm towards Naruto's chest, who remained in place. Shinigami's hands grasped Naruto's soul tightly and pulled. Shinigami's eyes widened when he couldn't remove his soul. I'm no ordinary mortal, Naruto said with his Rinnegan blazing, staring the death god in the face. You dare defy me, human? I'll have your soul destroyed, the Shinigami roared, and Hinata, Jiraiya and Gaara just scrambled away from his fury. Jiraiya just watched how Naruto stood in front of Death God himself, fearless. You and I both know that destroying a soul is impossible. They are like the bijouis. They are made of pure energy and that can't be destroyed, only sealed away, Naruto stated, much to the anger of the Shinigami. How about you hear my offer? Naruto asked and the Shinigami unwillingly accepted. What can you offer me, mortal? The Shinigami asked, intrigued by this human. Even though he possessed the eyes of the gods, he should be able to remove his soul without even trying. A way to stop mortals from summoning you, Naruto said, and the Shinigami grew curious. Speak, the Shinigami said and motioned for Naruto to go on. Currently there are 3 people alive that can summon you. In exchange for allowing me to take the single soul you possess and me alone the ability to summon you, I will make sure no one ever learns how to summon you, and I will destroy the Uzumaki clan's Death Reaper mask, Naruto stated. I see, the Shinigami replied in thought. This mortal did raise some good points. In a simple exchange of giving him the single soul he possessed, he could refrain from humans ever summoning him again, with the exception of this mortal. We have a deal. Once the mask is destroyed, summon me and I will allow you to take the soul I have. The Shinigami and Naruto smiled and bowed his head. However, betray me and make sure your soul will never enter the pure world, the Shinigami said and left. Now to destroy this mask once and for all, Naruto said, and with a glance, the mask erupted in black flames until it was nothing more than ashes flying in the wind. End flashback. The Kurigakure army was looking at the monstrosity in front of them. With the silver color and those scythes, every single shinobi felt as if they were staring at death himself that came down to judge them all. Every single shinobi felt a shiver crawl up their spine as Naruto's chakra spiked and he began his onslaught. Kaiten. Gukaku no Jutsu, Great Fireball Technique. Suiten. Suiryuden no Jutsu, Water Dragon. Suiten. Daibakufu no Jutsu, Waterfall Vortex. The Kurigakure's shinobi threw jutsu after jutsu at Naruto in an effort of stopping him, but they couldn't. There was no stopping his Susanoo, that was his ultimate defense and his greatest weapon. With a single stroke of his scythes, the ground cracked and dozens of shinobi were blasted back and killed. From inside the Susanoo, Naruto felt the usage of demon chakra. He looked up to see Yagura in his version 2 cloak charging up. Bijudama tailed beast ball. Yagura said and sent a Biju-powered beast ball towards Naruto in an effort to vanquish him for good. Naruto smiled, as the ball approached, and swinged his scythe. With a single stroke, the tailed beast ball was split in half and detonated prematurely. The ball exploded just before it hit Naruto's Susanoo, causing further deaths in Yagura's army. So the turtle came out to play, Naruto said as he watched Yagura fully transform into his full beast. Yagura had completely transformed into his Biju, the Sanbi, and stood behind his army backing them up. Ready Kurama? Naruto asked his own Biju, who smirked in return. Kuchio's no Jutsu. Kyuubi no Yoko, summoning technique. Nine-tailed demon fox. Naruto said, slamming his hand on the ground. There was a large poof of smoke and a big shock wave that blasted most of the shinobi back. Once the smoke cleared, the Kyuubi was standing there, his nine tails swinging in all of their glory, with Naruto on top on his head. ROOOAAAARRRRRR, the Kyuubi roared and the ground shook from the shockwave. His nine tails were swinging wildly. Everyone in the village could feel the oppressive and powerful chakra oozing from the Kyuubi. Standing in front of the Kurigakure army was the Kyuubi, the most powerful of the nine Biju. Suddenly the Kyuubi laughed, a laugh that echoed through the village. A creepy, dark and disembodied laugh that drew fear even into the strongest of men. We are all doomed, one shinobi said as he fell to his knees at the face of the enormous fox standing in front of them. Take care of the turtle while I finish up here. Lead him away from the village, Naruto said, and Kurama nodded, jumping towards the Sanbi. Hash with Mei and the others. My God. Mei stuttered, looking at the village. There were small fires everywhere, but what stood out was the towering nine-tailed fox in the middle of the village with Naruto standing on top of his head. If those two face off, there won't be a village left when they are done, Mei said as she looked towards the fox getting ready to jump at the turtle. Don't worry, Yellow said to appease her worries, Naruto would never destroy your village. If you watch closely you would see that the destruction is minimal, Yellow explained, but Mei frowned. What about those two Bijuis? Mei asked. Look carefully, Yellow said, chuckling. Mei watched as the fox suddenly pounced on the turtle. Kurama picked the turtle by his tails and threw her away from the village. You see, Yellow said, and Mei sighed in relief that she would have a village when this was over. How can he be so powerful? It's insane. He's beyond cage level, Mei stated as she watched as a single man took down 2,000 shinobi and defeated a Biju. I don't know, he just is, Yellow answered truthfully. With Toby that is a problem, Toby said, looking at the Kyuubi. If he can summon the Kyuubi to the outside and still be able to fight, then the standard duo team of the Akatsuki won't be enough to take him down, Toby mused in thought. And he has great control over his Susanoo, Toby stated, looking at the ethereal warrior. Back to Naruto. Naruto watched as Kurama battled with the turtle. Even he had to admit that the Sanbi had one hard shell. The Sanbi took a Bijudama and came out slightly smoking. Naruto smirked as Kurama taunted the damn turtle every single time he could. I guess he didn't get off in a while, Naruto thought. You bet. It feels good to stretch my legs for real, Kurama replied through their mental link. Naruto chuckled and turned to end his job. There still were about 1,000 shinobi remaining. Naruto focused chakra into his eyes and another pair of arms grew on his Susanoo. Both Naruto and the four Susanoo's arms made 3 hand seals simultaneously. Ram plus snake plus bird. Tengai Shinsei, shattered heaven. Naruto said as the sky began to darken even more. A shroud of darkness covered the whole village and many shinobi looked up only to see a large meteorite block their view of the moon and sky. What the hell is this? One shinobi asked, dropping the sword and looking at the rock coming down from the sky. Is this really ninjutsu? Another asked as they all began to retreat away, trying to get clear of the blast radius. Bijudama tailed beast ball. Naruto heard and looked to the left to see a big tailed beast ball heading towards the meteorite. The meteorite exploded into thousands of smaller stones that rained down on the village. You are a fool, Yagura, Naruto said before flashing through hand seals. Meteorite shower, Naruto said as he unleashed multiple fireballs that crashed into the falling stones. The stones became covered in flames as they lit the sky in what could only be described an inferno. These big balls of flames were crashing everywhere. The shinobi used water jutsu and rose earth shields, but to no avail. And to finish, Naruto said as he dropped his Susanoo and his eyes shifted to his Rinnegan. Naruto suddenly started levitating and flying high into the air. Naruto dodged a few meteorites that had yet to crash and rose high up air almost touching the clouds. The sky sparkled as the thunders seemed to intensify, but Naruto seemed unaffected even though he was in the midst of it. Naruto's body sparkled with electricity and the thunders merged together to form a new big blue dragon. Naruto's whole body was covered in blue lightning as the dragon exited the clouds and circled Naruto. With a single movement of hand, the dragon stopped and Naruto dropped down on his head, still high in sky. Raiden, Raijin no Ken, Fist of the Thunder God, one, Naruto said and dragon roared. Naruto rode the dragon into the ground and, in flash of white and blue, it exploded with such force that the whole village shook. The ground was covered in blue dome of chakra sparkling. Even the Kyuubi and the Sanbi braced themselves so they didn't get blasted away with the shockwave. Once the smoke had cleared and the blue chakra disappeared, the only thing remaining in the middle of the crater was Naruto, completely fine and without a hair out of place. Naruto looked around and saw that the army was devastated. There were 2, maybe 300 survivors here and there. That is what you get for attacking in numbers. Usually numbers mean victory, but not when the enemy can use large-scale jutsus and wipe them out in a fraction of a second. Namikaze Minato had done the same during the Third World War, and now, Senju Naruto had just started his own legend by decimating an army of 2,000. Please, the shinobi said, backing away and stumbling to the ground, falling on his butt. No more. We surrender, the shinobi said while the others did the same and bowed to Naruto in sign of defeat. Naruto didn't spare them a glance as he looked towards the Kyuubi and the Sanbi. There was only one target left, Yagura. With Mei and the others it's over, Blue said while Mei, Chojuro and her rebel army stared in shock. A single shinobi had decimated 2,000 trained shinobi in under a few minutes. Remind me to never piss him off, muttered under his breath while Chojuro was on the ground drooling. Thank God we will be allied to the Leaf, Mei thought with her eyes bulging out of her skull. He was truly a god. Just what kind monster did Namikaze Minato and Uzumaki Kushina had? To think he conquered a village without even truly using his Rinnegan, Green thought as he looked at the devastation. There weren't many bodies left as the Amaterasu flames, coupled with the last Raiden jutsu, disintegrated everything. Send word to the army. We are occupying the village, Yellow said, and Mei nodded, ordering her army to take control of the village. Naruto had been careful to only use those devastating jutsus on the main clearing of village, leaving the buildings mostly intact. Naruto could feel life force inside, and those were probably civilians, and, while he was pissed, he wouldn't target civilians who had nothing to do with this. With Toby Toby watched the outcome of the battle with a single bead of sweat rolling down his head. He should never allowed Naruto to grow this much, and now, he knew that he was going to be trouble. And a lot of it. And for someone who had a god under his belt, he felt a very human chill crawling up his spine. This won't end well, Toby thought as he warped away from the village and into his new hideout. Naruto and Kyuubi vs Yagura and Sanbi. Naruto arrived to see Kurama and Sanbi face off. Kurama was faster and more agile than the Sanbi. Though on the other hand, the Sanbi was built as a tank, made to last and endure any type of an attack. If the tailed beast ball she took head on a few minutes ago was anything to go by, her shell was very strong and sturdy. Yagura, is that you in there? Naruto asked as the giant turtle in front of him as he jumped on top of Kurama's head. You will pay for this, you insolent brat, a pissed Yagura replied. He had just lost the war. This kid in front of him had decimated his army and conquered his city. If he couldn't win this war, he would at least take the brat with him. The Sanbi charged forward and coiled herself. The Sanbi started spinning and rolling all over the battlefield. Kurama dodged aside to avoid getting hit head-on and watched as the Sanbi changed paths and blurred towards him once again. Naruto sat down on the Kyuubi's head and started gathering natural energy while Kurama kept the Sanbi busy. A few minutes later, Naruto opened his eyes to show several red marks spread around his face. Naruto gained red pigment markings around and under his eyes as well, 2 concentric red circles in the middle of his forehead. His Mangekyo was still the blood red but was glowing unnaturally. These were the markings of a sage. Naruto extended his right arm and chakra started gathering on the palm of his hand. A familiar swirl was heard as a Rasengan was being born in his hand. The ball started taking a silvery color like his chakra and a deafening sound was starting to come out. Suddenly the Rasengan expanded, forming 4 large points around the central sphere, taking the appearance of a Fuma Shuriken. Futen, Rasenshuriken, Naruto said and hurled the new Rasengan towards Yagura. The sphere sliced through the air and before Yagura could react, the Rasengan hit the Sanbi right in the head. The Sanbi was pushed back and rose into the air. A towering dome, 50 feet in diameter appeared around him as thousands of wind blades sliced through her shell like a hot knife through butter. When it was over the Sanbi collapsed to the ground. Golden chains burst from the ground and ensnared the Sanbi's tails, paws, head and whole body, pinning her to the ground. The Sanbi squirmed under the chains but it was no avail. Even Kurama had trouble with those chains. Rat, ox, dog, boar. Naruto went through the hand signs and clapped his hands together. He slammed his right hand on the ground and kanji started flowing out of it and going towards the Sanbi, forming a ring around him. 5-point demonic suppression seal, Naruto said and the kanji started glowing. Yagura yelled in pain as his tenant's chakra was being forced back into the seal. This was the same seal Naruto had sued against the Ikibi during the sound invasion. This seal works like the 5-pronged seal but on a much larger scale. This seal suppresses the Biju's chakra, forcing it back into the seal. The Sanbi coiled itself in a large dome of water. In just a few seconds all the water disappeared and Yagura fell to the ground. Naruto jumped down from Kurama's head and approached Yagura who was lying on the ground. Sweeten, Sushoha, exploding water wave. Yagura shouted and Naruto's eyes widened when a gigantic water wave rose from the ground. Yagura was panting at the top of the wave as he commanded her to crash into Naruto. Naruto used his Kamui and left the water hit the ground. Once the wave had calmed down, Naruto jumped on top of the water looking at Yagura. You are still alive, Naruto said looking towards Yagura. He was slightly bent over, taking deep breaths. It's over Yagura, your reign of tyranny and oppression has come to an end, Naruto said closing the distance between them. Something is wrong, Naruto whispered to himself observing Yagura intently. His chakra network was off, very off. His chakra seemed to be all over the place, like he had some genjutsu affecting him. Could it be? Naruto thought to himself as he approached Yagura and placed 2 fingers on his forehead. Kai, release. Naruto shouted as he infused some of his chakra into Yagura's network to disrupt and restart his chakra flow. Yagura blinked and noticed the blonde in front of him. Who are you? Yagura asked to Naruto whose eyes widened. Oh shit, Naruto thought since he was right. Suddenly his eyes became silver as his Rinnegan flared to life. Naruto placed a hand on top of his head. Human path, Naruto said and started reading Soul. Naruto was rummaging through his memories when a certain orange-masked individual appeared in them. Tobi, Naruto thought angrily. It was all his fault. Tobi had used the Sanbi as medium to manipulate Yagura. He was just another innocent in all of this. What? Yagura said dropping to his knees and looking at his shaking hands, what have I done? Yagura asked himself and Naruto knew that look all too well. Regret. And a lot of it. Naruto turned to Kurama when the ground suddenly shook. Naruto quickly turned back to Yagura to had a small smile on his face and a hand on his stomach. Time seemed to slow down as Yagura spoke. Thank you for setting me free, take care of Kiri for me, Yagura said just before his body exploded and bright light rose to the skies. The light expanded and started reforming in the air. 3 trails suddenly sprouted from the energy. The energy started condensing, gaining a light blue tone and several spikes. The Sanbi was reforming. He took his own life by fully releasing the Sanbi, Naruto sadly thought. Tobi had wrecked yet another village and countless lives. And all for what? Can you blame him? Kurama rhetorically asked. When he became aware of everything he had done, he couldn't live with it, Kurama said and Naruto nodded looking at the Sanbi nearly finished reforming. I'll make sure he's remembered for who he truly was, Naruto thought to himself as the Sanbi landed on the ground. Naruto looked up as the Sanbi looked down. Suddenly and out of nowhere one of the Sanbis came down and crushed Naruto into the ground. I didn't think you would associate with humans Kurama, the Sanbi said towards his brother. That wasn't very nice Isobu, Naruto said as he started levitating until he was at eye level with the Sanbi. Those eyes, Isobu said in shock. This human had the Rinnegan, his father's eyes. You see, he's not an ordinary human, Kurama replied chuckling. Why did you try to kill me, Isobu? Naruto asked curious. After all, Naruto was the cause of his release. I know all of you humans. You a bunch of power-hungry fools, and I didn't intend to be sealed again, Isobu replied, and Naruto nodded. What if I told that I never intended to seal you? Naruto rhetorically asked towards a surprised Sanbi. In fact, I have a proposition for you, Naruto said. Really? Isobu asked with caution, as humans weren't to be trusted. What do you have in mind? Isobu asked curious. Yagura's last wish was for me to take care of Kiri. I can't do that since I have Konoha to look out for. I want you to protect this village, but this time, instead of you being a weapon sealed inside some human, I want you to be a guardian. Naruto said towards the surprised Sanbi, who looked interested and surprised by this human. This is your natural habit, Naruto said, gesturing to all the water around the islands. I just want you to be free, and while at it, defend this village. I promise that no one from this village will ever try and seal you again, Naruto explained, and waited for Isobu's answer. You amuse me, human. I shall accept your proposition. As long as this village and their shinobi don't disturb, I shall do my best to keep them safe, Isobu replied, which made Naruto smile. That is all I ask, Isobu, Naruto replied, and turned to Kurama. You can stay and catch up. Tell him about the Akatsuki and such. I'll see you later, Naruto said, and swirled away. Truly an interesting human, Isobu said, amused, and turned to Kurama. Do you think he's the one? Isobu asked. I have no doubt, Kurama replied with a smirk.